Rock and metal invasion! Rock and metal invasion! Rock and metal invasion! Rock and metal invasion!
Hi, welcome to Rock and Metal Invasion. My name is Steve. Coming up on the show today, we are doing a look at the new book from Tim Durling. On the record, the April Wine album review. There we go. We both got our copies. And I've got the man himself, Tim Durling, here to talk about it. How you going, Tim?
Really good, Steve. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for taking part in the book too.
Oh no, it's always a pleasure, and yeah, I love being involved with your books. So I think I've done Y&T and Night Ranger. So this is the third
Yeah,
one. Yeah, so it's been really good. One thing I find when I am doing a book like this or getting involved with something like this, it actually really enhances my enjoyment for the band, and I really just enjoy just really getting into the band and just really investigating them a little bit more than I have in the past.
yeah, same. I mean, same when I'm working on them.
Yeah.
It really and then even after the book is out, I find I keep going back to the albums for a while. So yeah,
Mm.
it makes sense. I mean, you just got the music on your mind, so it's like, well, let me hear some of it. You get it in your head, and you're
Mm.
like, no, I actually want to hear it.
Yeah, that's right. And especially with bands like we talked about, Y&T, Night Ranger, and now April Wine, they've got quite a large discography. They've got a good history. So there's a lot to get into, you know? It's not a quick sort
Big,
of thing to do. Yeah.
yeah, it's not a 5, 6 album catalog.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think maybe around the world, some people think that it might have been. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this book to say, no, they 16 albums, studio albums
Yeah.
plus comps and live albums and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is Tim's seventh book actually. So been really busy since what around 2022, I think it is. You did your first
2022 is,
yeah.
yeah, it was like fall of 2022 when Unspooled first came out. It's pretty crazy how, yeah, I've been doing about two a year. It seems to be the average, so it's a lot of fun, and I really enjoy getting these uh, trying to get some focus on some of these bands that really aren't, top of mind on a
Yeah.
larger scale. Now, here in Canada, of course, they're a Canadian band and they're quite well known. I mean, they're,
Mm.
one of the top classic rock bands in Canada, I would say, if you were to say, name me 10 Canadian rock bands. Uh, but around the world, it's not quite like that. I mean, they had some success in the U.S. and
Mm.
so it's that's another thing. It's been interesting to see, what people that, like yourself, like in other parts of the world, like what is your history with April Wine? Where did they come up on your radar? Uh, so yeah, it's important to me to say, there's lots of books on, there's bands that have lots of books on them, right? I
Mm.
like to try and do books on bands where maybe there aren't so many books on them, and people can hopefully uh, discover a band that maybe they've heard the name, maybe they had one or two albums, and hopefully this makes them want to dig deeper.
Yeah, yeah. But also as well, like if you're a massive fan, you're like, gee, I wish someone would put out a book on these guys, you know?
Yeah,
So in
it's
that
two
case,
things. Yeah, it
yeah,
serves two purposes. Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and also surprisingly enough, your first Canadian band.
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah,
I know it's,
it is kind of surprising. And there's definitely, there's more on the list that I'd like to get to eventually, but I knew that somewhere along the line, yeah, I was going to do an April Wine book because yeah, I'm a huge fan of this band, and not only are they Canadian, but they're the only like sort of like world renowned band that actually kind of originate from my corner of Canada, the easternmost part
mm,
of Canada. So
mm,
yeah, so there's a connection there beyond the music, but the music is, of course, the main thing. But yeah, it's yeah, like I said in the book, like any fine wine, everything in its time, right? Now,
mm,
won't, you know, there were other bands that I thought, because April Wine is such a big band here in Canada still. There's other bands I thought, we need to get a book out on. There needs to be a
mm,
Night Ranger book, needs to
mm,
be a Y&T
mm,
book, and it was so now it's
mm,
just like, okay, let's do April Wine now.
mm. Have you got like a list like that, or is it just more one thing at a time? I'll think of the next one I'm gonna do, and
I usually try to get no more than two or three in my head because
yeah.
it's a little overwhelming. And the happy accident about doing the April Wine book when I did is I started the book, you know, quite a few months ago. Maybe even at the end of last year, I think is when I started gathering the panelists
Yeah.
and
It seems like a
getting input
while.
and stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but along the way, all of a sudden, here comes the reunited Triumph,
Mm,
and April Wine is opening their tour.
mm,
So it was just and that made its way into the epilogue of this book.
mm.
So it
Yeah, no,
was a
it's great.
really, yeah, it was a really, really cool coincidence that that happened. So no, I'm pleased with how it came out. And as always, the panelists, yourself and so many others that are in here, I got them all listed. Came through with some great, yeah. Oh man, I love that poster. I have found that
Mm,
poster in a record store. And I was like, got to have that, got to get that up and framed. But, I also just want to make mention April Wine has one of my favorite logos. It's one of my favorite rock logos. And it's also one of my biggest pet peeves is if you've got a few in the background there is
mm.
once you establish a logo, why would you stop using it for a couple records? And you've got the two mid 80s records there where they just went with this plain whatever. And man, you've got a cool logo. I think you got to use it. But,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
talk about all of that and more.
They do have a great logo, yeah, and but also, like you say, you've got Triumph, you've got April Wine, probably two of Canada's biggest hard rock bands. Maybe there's Loverboy, but yeah, I can't think of too many. When you talk about just hard rock bands, that would be much bigger. So
Oh,
yeah,
I mean, I reviewed there's a whole review of the show and lots of footage from
mm,
it on one of my episodes, and what a great night of music. It was
yeah,
just fantastic. And in the case of April Wine, it brought me around, because when the band loses their lead singer, who, was not just their lead singer, but their primary songwriter, one of
mm,
their lead guitar players, and just the leader of the band, you
mm,
think, wow, do I really want to see a band that's made up
mm,
of who's left?
mm,
And, if the Triumph Tour hadn't happened, I don't know that I would have gone to see them. And that would have been a shame. But because, I mean, in all honesty, I've been into Triumph longer than I've been into April Wine. So there was no way I wasn't going to go see them, especially where they were coming so close to where I live. But now I would go see April Wine on their own and play
mm.
a full set as the band exists now. They're actually the band I've seen more than any other band. I've seen them 6 times now, which in my neck of the woods in the maritime provinces of Canada, that's nothing. Like there are fans that,
Yeah,
well, yeah, I saw them 6 times on one tour.
right, right,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
Yeah. Well, they've still got, I mean, also they can't help it when a vocalist passes away, right? So, if you're going
yeah,
to carry on, it's not like one of those situations where, Miles has gone off and done another version of the band or something like that. So,
right, yeah, they didn't, yeah, that's right. They didn't split. There's no splinter group, and actually Mark Parent, the guy who's singing and playing his guitar parts now, he was chosen by Miles to because
yeah,
I mean
yeah.
Miles before he died, I mean Miles was a lifelong diabetic. He struggled with that his
Mm,
entire career, and that was being on the road and irregular hours and all of that. So he was ready to step down anyway and sort of
mm,
like pass the torch along. So I mean he has the official seal of approval. So
yeah,
and
yeah,
I think that's one of the reasons they were able to carry on. But as a
yeah.
fan, I remember very quietly to myself like, boy. Man, what's that going to be like an April wine without Miles Goodwin? Because in so many ways he
Mm,
was April wine. But
yeah.
I was convinced. Those are great songs, and people want to hear them done live, and they go over well in concert. And it just reinforces like this music needs to be remembered.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. And you've got Brian in there too. I know he's not an original member, but he's a very sort of
He's a
big
senior
part of
member. Brian is
it.
such an important part of that band. I mean, he stepped in, they became a bigger band. Uh, you know, Part of it was him coming into the band. Part of it was them signing the worldwide deal with Capitol and focusing more on a harder rock sound. But yeah, he's a vital part of that band, and
Mm,
it's in good hands with him now.
mm,
And they're great. All of them are great musicians, and yeah, this music is just it's great rock and roll. It's not rocket science, but within the context of those albums, I think people might be surprised at how eclectic some of the albums are. I'm curious,
mm.
Steve, like um when did April Wine come up on your radar?
Oh, well, they're a completely different band, I think, down here, here in New Zealand. April Wine, I suppose, because they had some success in the early 80s, they went platinum, had gold albums,
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
had at least one gold album. I think often New Zealand will go, oh, well, their album's gone platinum. We'll get it in here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It will be in the shops and you can get it. But it's only because it's done well in America. Like if it hadn't sort of taken off, you'd have to get it on import or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So you do see those albums in music shops here in New Zealand. Those those ones that did quite well, did
The
successful.
harder, faster nature of the
Yeah, those
beast. Yeah.
ones you do. In fact, I think I've talked to you about this before. Maybe I've said it even in the book, wrote it in the book. Is that you can find them really easily, and they're quite cheap. They're not expensive at all.
Yeah.
Not they're
Yeah.
not yeah, they're not expensive albums to get. So but I guess it's one of those things where they don't really get any radio play and they never came down here and toured down here. So um that's really the situation, I guess.
Yeah, in my collection, I actually have one. I've got a cassette of their fifth album, The Whole World's Going Crazy. I've got an Australian cassette on
Okay.
London Records. That's the
Yeah.
only Australian April Wine thing that
Yeah.
I've got in my collection. Yeah, I mean, and I would imagine it's mostly the capital years that you would see down there, the
Yeah.
ones that had the biggest distribution. Yeah, they were, they were quite well known in the UK. I think they did okay in like Germany, but mostly it was a North American thing. And yeah,
Mm.
and even in the US, I mean, the Harder Faster was a gold record and Nature of the Beast was platinum. Other than that, there's no other certifications. Of course, here in Canada, it's a different story. Most of their albums, at least in the 70s and 80s, were at least gold, usually platinum or double
Mm.
platinum. I mean, and they would just crisscross the country constantly. I mean, they're a band that was almost constantly on tour, except for, when they were on hiatus from like
Mm.
85 to like 91, 92, and then they got back together. And I think
Yeah.
did one of their best albums.
Yeah, but I think that was also that, like for me, part of the problem is that when they were on hiatus, that was just when I was just getting into hard rock music. So
Yeah.
I remember seeing, Nature of the Beast, Harder, Faster, and sort of looking at the date because I'm just blind buying everything. I don't hear this
Yeah.
stuff. So it's a bit old. Yeah, they kind of look like they've got a bit of a tough sound, or they've got the album titles and even the album covers sometimes look they could be quite heavy, but. Yeah, so I didn't really kind of get into them at that point, but I'll tell you what I did find, which really surprised me, Tim. I found a CD of Frigate.
Oh,
So
look at
here in New
that.
Zealand for a couple of bucks. So yeah, pick that one.
Wow. See,
Yeah.
so that album, that's 94, and then the one before it, Attitude, 93. Those would have only been issued on CD once in
Mm,
Canada. So
mm.
somehow it made its way down there.
Who knows?
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's Frigate. I have a soft spot for because that after I became a fan, that was the first new album to come out,
Oh
and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
also the first time I saw them on tour was when that album was current. And I really liked those two early 90s albums. And I remember thinking that, they came out with Attitude 93. Decent comeback for them. It was gold record in Canada. Really heavy rocking album for
Mm,
them. And then the very next year they come up with a new album. I was hoping that, oh yeah, we're going to see some more, on a regular basis. That wasn't the case. Unfortunately, they only
mm,
did two other records. And, the last one they did was really kind of a almost an EP, and it was kind of a not the best way to go out, but they've there's enough of a legacy of good music there, and I think that there's a lot to offer for your average rock fan. Yes, they do have moments. I would never call April Wine an out and out hard rock band. They were
mm,
more of just a rock band.
mm,
Maybe you'd call them AOR. Certainly, some of their stuff would definitely be AOR.
mm.
The early stuff is very eclectic. Not
Yeah.
all of it's to my personal taste, but I wanted to
Mm,
feature it all, right? Obviously, they're best known for that turn of the 80s period.
mm.
That was their commercial peak all around the world. It wasn't any different in here. I mean, that was when they were like, holy cow, April Wine, yeah, yeah, a big deal. And that's why, you can get Japanese imports of, their albums and stuff. But yeah, I can't imagine. Yeah, you raise a good point, a lot of good points. Yeah, if you got into when you were just getting into music, and it was a period where they were inactive and they weren't even that big a deal in New Zealand to begin with, unless you had an older relative that said, "Oh, if you like hard rock music, you might
Yeah.
like this record here,"
Yeah.
you weren't likely to don't pick that up unless it was with, oh, I'm selling a box of records and that happened to be in there.
Mm.
And in the pre-internet age, as I always tell people, you couldn't just listen to something. You couldn't
Yeah,
just
no, it's not.
know. what stuff sounded like. There was that discovery. It's like, do I really want to invest my money in something that I might not like? And
That's right.
it's so much easier if you can just go onto YouTube and listen to it for a few minutes. It's like, yeah, I think I like that, or no, I don't think that's for me, or maybe I'll check
Yeah.
it out later.
Well, hopefully that's what's going to happen too, like with a band like April Wine and people will actually start discovering some of these albums now. And yeah, I mean I certainly hope so. Certainly that's actually what I've done to some degree, right? I mean, so yeah, because like you say, it's good rock music, really melodic vocals, but really great musicianship. Um, I always think though it's funny and Triumph a little bit like that as well. They did carry on a little bit through the late 80s, but bands like April Wine and Triumph, they're like the proto hair metal in some ways, and they really missed the big payday that they could have got, when they were so
Very much, yeah. Very much so. Yeah, I know Martin Popoff and I did an episode of The Contrarians and that. Like, did Canada invent hair metal? And a
yeah,
lot of
that's right.
people are like, no. Well, we're not saying that. We're just saying that there were an awful, percentage-wise, there were an awful lot of
Mm,
bands that came out of Canada by way of comparison. And April Wine and Triumph, yeah, certainly were sort of AOR. In both of their cases, especially April Wine, it's like, well, they pretty much had the sound down. They didn't have the
yeah.
look down. Uh, Triumph were a little bit more adaptable to that. But I mean, I've always wondered, when April Wine kind of split in 84, 85, and went on hiatus, I've always wondered what would a couple more April Wine albums have sounded like. I would imagine it wouldn't surprise me too much if they would have been kind of like Sport of Kings and Surveillance,
Mm,
very much more pop, because Walking Through Fire and Surveillance, I think, are very similar albums, because for
mm,
one thing, I don't think there's any live drums on any of the songs on those albums. I think
mm,
they're all machines.
mm.
But yet, I have a soft spot for both of those albums. I think there's some good songs on there.
Yeah.
Maybe the production's kind of dated, but yeah, I think that they were, the idea of having like louder guitars, but you're playing, AM radios playing you or pop radios
Mm,
playing you,
mm,
and they managed to do that. So, um, but yet, they had really, really heavy songs like
mm.
on like Crash and Burn and Future Tense, and their cover of 21st Century Schizoid Man. I mean, they could rock really, really hard when they were so inclined.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. What was your is it a similar process for this book as far as coming up with your questions? You just kind of give the album a listen and then sort of, well, I guess multiple listens.
Yeah, yeah, there was certainly, certain key points I wanted to raise. One thing that I made sure I and did was, April Wine is a band like a lot of bands, that they have a handful of B-sides.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in the case of April Wine, they've got a handful of B-sides that only exist as the B-sides, as obscure 45s. They've never been compiled
Yeah. I've
properly.
got
But
one here, Tim. I've got one here.
one of my favorites, yeah, I really don't
Yeah.
want your love. I don't know why they didn't put that on Animal Grace and make it a 10-song record, but anyway,
I'm not a completist. Like I didn't get it because had to get everything. I got it because it's such a great song. Yeah, such
yeah.
a good song. It's like yeah, really don't want your love. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, would have fit right in, and
Yeah.
I think that Animal Grace is like, I think Animal Grace is half of a good album. I think side one's quite good.
Mm,
Side two starts to lose it, and if they'd have popped that song in the middle of side two, it would have really reframed it. But yeah, no, I found that 45 at a flea market, and I just saw the cover. I mean, it's just the Animal Grace cover. And I thought, well, I'll get, it was like 50 cents or a dollar or
yeah,
something. Oh,
yeah.
I'll get that. That's cool. And then I said, I
Yeah.
wonder what the B-side is. And then I
Right.
looked at it, I'm like, oh, this is like a whole, like, so this is, for me, this is a brand new song I've never heard before. And then
Yeah.
I listened to it. And I'm like, this is great. So
Yeah.
yeah, so in context of that album, I made sure and mentioned that song. So
Yeah,
that's
you
one thing I
did.
wanted to make sure I covered the questions,
Yeah.
that if there were any B-sides, songs that were on live albums that were in and around, like you've got Live at the El Macambo in the back. There's two songs on there that weren't on any other album. So I talked about those. So there were certain key things I wanted to talk about. If an album, and this happened a couple times, had two different covers internationally, different track listings internationally. Yeah,
Mm,
wanted to get that in there. There's certain key points I wanted to do. And so other than that,
mm,
yeah, this was quite easy for me because, well, number one, I mean, it's my seventh book. I should be getting better at it, I'd like to think. But other than that, it was just a band that I've been wanting to write about for such a long time, and I've been
mm,
wanting to get certain things down in print, and get feedback on it. And I love getting the feedback from from
Mm,
everybody because everybody's got a different entry point, everybody's got a
mm,
different history with the band, and some people have a very short history and they're saying I'm just getting into them. That's great, you know. And sometimes they hear things I've not heard even though I've been listening to them for years. So
mm,
yeah, it came together, you know, quite easily. I can't really think of any snags that I hit along the way.
mm,
It came out well. And I also, you know, I wanted to make sure I did that chapter on the original versions of the songs that April Wine have covered, because that's one thing I find about this
mm,
band. They usually chose kind of off the beaten path covers. Either they were obscure artists and songs, or they were lesser known songs by more famous artists. And I wanted to talk about where the originals came if anybody wanted to go check them out.
yeah.
Um,
I do think they
so
do
yeah,
good.
no,
They do good cover songs though, because often their cover songs end up being like this album, for example. Like, I want to make love to you, and I'm a man. They're probably two of my favorites off this one. And but sounds a bit
yeah,
like ZZ. And I thought that's ZZ Top, isn't it? But it's not a ZZ Top. But they sound a bit like ZZ Top.
a
But
little bit, yeah,
yeah,
a little bit, yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, one of their best known songs is "Sign of the Gypsy Queen," and
yeah,
that
great
is a
song.
cover. And if you listen to the original version of it, it's a folk song. It's like they
Yeah,
totally
yeah,
transformed it. So
yeah.
yeah, they do. They pick. They're very good at rearranging songs. I mean, uh, "Tell Me Why" on Power Play is a Beatles song. They're doing it sort of like a ballad with really like bluesy guitar licks. The original Beatles song sounds nothing like that. So yeah,
Mm,
really, really, really good at rearranging songs, and then just picking cool songs to cover. Like I know "Walking Through Fire" is like a lot of people don't like that album. It's not really a band album.
mm,
Lots of keyboards, drum
mm.
machines. But there's songs on there that I really like "Wanted Dead or Alive."
That's
That's
a good one.
fantastic.
Yeah,
And I don't know if Miles ever sang any better than he sang on that record. His vocals were
yeah.
reaching a peak then. So it was just it's such a shame that was the end of the road for a bit. But it, you know,
Mm, mm.
all of these things were I wanted to make sure and cover.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's really good. You weren't tempted to because I don't think you did. I've only just had the book for a week or two. I haven't gone through it all, but you weren't tempted to go through the solo albums, Brian Greenway or Miles solo albums.
No, I didn't. I didn't really go down that route.
Yeah,
There aren't a lot. I mean, Miles put out a
yeah.
solo album in '88. Again, that had two covers, depending on whether you got it in Canada or the States. Same year, Brian Greenway put out an album, Serious Business. A lot of people like that album. I know it's got some big guest stars on it. Aldo Nova's on it. Alex Lifeson plays a solo on it. And then years Miles' voice, and I remember thinking, much like when Tom Kiefer put out his solo albums, I was like, well, this is probably the closest thing I'm going to get to a new Cinderella album. Ditto for April Wine.
Mm,
And I actually like those albums quite a lot, probably because it's got the familiar voice on there. But he also redoes a couple of April Wine songs. Like, for example, I mentioned Animal Grace. There's a song inside the very last song on the album called Last Time I'll Ever Sing the Blues. It's really dated in that early 80s production.
mm.
He redoes it, and I was like, this is a really cool, like, blues rock song now. So, yeah, that's about as far. And I do mention those two albums. That's about as far as I go. I mean, there's you can always go down a band's, rabbit
Yeah,
holes for
totally, totally.
Jim Clench, when he left April Wine, I mean, he was in the latter day 70s version of BTO, which is kind of interesting. And then he was in a band called 451.
Okay.
Um, and then there's a band called The Dudes, which most of the Headmans were in, and that's where Brian Greenway came from. So yeah, there's plenty of related things that, you can go further.
Yeah,
And there's allusions to them in the book. So if people want to dive in further, yeah, feel free. I will
mm.
say that I used to have Miles' solo album from '88, and I didn't really care for it. It's not a
No.
substitute for an April Wine album. A lot of it's very pop.
Mm,
It sounds like an even lighter version of Walking Through Fire to my ears,
mm,
but
mm,
maybe some people like it. But
mm,
yeah,
mm. I noticed so you've got your friend Matt he does the design for you? Yeah, so
absolutely, yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's
yeah.
handy,
Matthew
having
Good,
having him available for that. Um
that's great. Yeah,
yeah. I noticed Tim Durling, the font here looks like an April Wine album title,
it's straight from Nature of the Beast.
Nature of
Yeah,
the Beast. Yeah, yeah,
and that's by design. And the other thing that's by design is the spine. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, and you're only the second person. You and John Clauser are you're the second person to bring that up. I'm so glad you noticed that.
Well, I
Uh,
only noticed because John noticed, but yeah, I saw the episode. But
Yeah, so
yeah,
yeah, no, so that's sort of a thing. I really wanted to do that because it's very minutia. But if you're a collector, it helps if you grew up in Canada in the '80s because Capitol Records in the mid '80s put out a series of reissue cassettes. I mean, they did it for all of their artists, and they all had that gray uh, background with the blue, just the blue font on it. And because April Wine had so many albums, most of their albums from like 71 through 85, you can see like a whole list of them that all look like that. So yeah, I want the spine to look like that. Just like when I did my Kansas book, I wanted it to look like the old CBS CDs with the red on white and the impact font. I thought, yeah, I want to do that, see if anybody picks up on that. I had to sell Matt on that. He's like, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't look like the rest of the cover. I'm like, trust me, people that get it, people that get it will get it, even if it's not until they have them in their on their bookshelf and look at it and go, why does that look so familiar? So yeah, if you collect April Wine cassettes worldwide, you're going to look at that and go, oh, I know where you got that from.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Did you do a similar one on Night Ranger, or was that no? Maybe not.
No, not so much. So far,
No.
it's only the other one is like the Kansas one. Like any, if I ever do a, pretty much if I do a band that was a Sony or CBS band, I want to do the red on white
Yeah,
just because
yeah,
I've got
that's
so
classic, isn't it?
many cassettes
Yeah.
and CDs that look like that, and I just want, I just love the idea of matching
Maybe
it
if you
up,
do a
making it.
lover, maybe if you do a lover boy, because they did that, didn't they? They
Oh
did.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah.
yeah,
Look, there's so many bands, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But with April Wine, yeah. I mean, if you collect, whether it's Pink Floyd or the Beatles or the
Mm.
Beach Boys, I mean, you'll see cassettes that look like this. I mean, the very first one I ever bought that looks like this was Helix No Rest for the Wicked. Looks like that in
Mm.
Canada. So yeah, no, it's very familiar to those of us that grew up in Canada buying cassettes. So yeah, I like doing little things like that, and finding a font that looked something like the April Wine logo, but
Mm.
not exact. But you're absolutely right. This is straight out of Nature of the
Yeah, that's
Beast.
right. Yeah, the beast there. Yeah. So I noticed you've got quite a few contributors. But then I guess Night Ranger had quite a few as well. Is this
Night
the,
Ranger's the record. Yeah,
is
Night
that
Ranger's definitely the record. Like I've got 10 panelists per chapter in the Night
right?
Ranger one.
Yeah.
This one, not so much, but yeah, I do have a lot of, and I
Right.
got some returning panelists, and there's some people that have never been in one of my books before. So I was really glad that I try to expand every time, but there were certain people I knew I wanted to have in here because I knew that they were big fans, like Dave Lubin, for example. I'd never had him in one of my books before. I met him through Grant's Rock Warehouse. We did an entire deep dive long
Right.
before this book existed on April Wine, and it all started because Grant had just casually mentioned he saw it was April Wine, Sammy Hagar, and Scorpions in 1980, and when anybody other outside of Canada mentions April Wine, my ears would perk right up, and I
Yeah.
said, "Tell
Yeah.
me about the April Wine show. How were they?" And he's like, "Oh, they were fantastic." I'm like, "Do you want to talk about them?" So I knew Grant
Yeah.
had to be in here, so yeah, it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
it was great, and Johnny Metal, John Clauser. I mean, I know I introduced him to a lot of these albums, so. Even before the book was out, they were expand. The band doesn't know it, but their fan base was expanding.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was keen to do it, but I was a little hesitant at first because as I probably said to you, I was like, I don't know them. I know Night Ranger YNT really well. It's always you always feel more confident about a band when you buying their albums at the back in the day when they're actually coming out. So
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
which is
It's
why
easier when.
I was going to say it's why it did take me a little while because you're probably thinking, is Steve going to ever get this back to me?
Oh no, no, I never thought like
Um,
that.
I didn't
But
want to just kind of listen to because some of these albums I hadn't listened to very much. I just wanted to give them a good listen and actually then just live with them for a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Before.
yeah, absolutely. It's different. It's a totally different thing. If you pick them up in their day, or even if you picked them up 30 years ago when they were already old albums, but you were taking them in and listening to them
Mm,
and know them inside and out, it's different than if you just
mm,
discovered them. So yeah,
mm,
I appreciate the fact that you really wanted to take the time and not just give it like a
mm,
cursory listen once and go
mm,
this, this, this,
mm.
this, this. So
Oh
yeah.
yeah, no, yeah, no. And again, like I said before, it actually really enhances my enjoyment for the band and I've been enjoying as well reading comments from that I'm not that I didn't contribute from the other albums that I've got as you can see at the back there
Yeah.
I've got I think I've got everything from the 80s. I haven't got some of the 70s stuff and haven't got, post 90 sort of stuff, but apart from the CD I showed you, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's there's still time to get into that and listen to that at some point.
Well, that's the fun, excuse me, that's the fun of getting into when you get into a band and then you discover they've got this huge back catalog. Like,
Mm,
great, I've got more to look for now.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
interesting that you got the El Macambo vinyl back there because I that's not one you see all the time even in Canada. I'm going to assume that you got a London version of that.
Yeah, well, actually, to be honest with you, like I said, they're not an expensive. It's not expensive to get their albums usually, and I think I bought that kind of came with a group of albums, that kind of like a lot, sort of buying a whole lot of
Okay.
albums, and it was just in there, and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. I'll grab that, but yeah, I specifically did. I think some of them, yeah, I bought locally, but also some I've got through Discogs as well.
Okay.
I
So they could
probably
have literally.
yeah, I mean, I could have, I would have found them all eventually at some point, but it's just a matter of, being at the right place at
And
the right time.
it's something that is touched upon in the book too. That's a good illustration because you've got their, the capital years back there.
Mm.
It's a pretty good illustration of the fact that when they signed with Capitol in '78 worldwide and EMI, their album art got a lot better. Because
Mm.
that El Macambo,
Oh, yeah.
that does not look like a rock. I mean, that looks like a yacht rock. That looks like Pablo Cruz or something. It doesn't look like a yacht rock album or
Mm.
Orleans. But the other album covers in some cases look heavier than the albums themselves, but they sure are cool.
Yeah, 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 they are. And I've got a couple because it's a set of eight there, and I've only got six April Wine albums on vinyl. I put the Live at Donington or the Monsters of Rock in there because that sort of matches up with it's got April Wine.
Got
So
I Like to Rock on there. Great version of that too.
yeah.
That's something else I wish that they would put a comp out and put that version on it. Because I don't think that Donington thing's ever been on CD, has it?
No, I don't. I don't think so. I've never seen it. I don't
It's
think.
really weird that's never been reissued.
Yeah,
That's like the
yeah,
hearing aid. That's like the hearing aid. It needs to be reissued.
yes, yes, yeah. And the other one, Fierce Heart, is that's the band Fierce Heart, but
Yeah,
it's the same artist that did
of the Animal Grace.
yeah, Animal Grace. Yeah, it's the same
Yeah,
artist.
because it looks like, I mean, that could just as well say April Wine on the top of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah,
that's really no, I like what you that's like I
yeah,
do stuff like that sometimes. Like, well,
yeah,
if I haven't got
yeah.
it all, I'll get something the next best thing, right?
I was thinking,
And plus,
I was thinking of
and
asking you that as a question, Tim. Like, what do those two albums have in common? But
well, I was
it's a
going to
tough
say
one.
they both look to have like sort of like mechanized dogs on them. I mean,
Yeah.
you could have almost put Black Tiger there and still have a theme going. You've got especially with the red on black. But and that's another thing. Until they signed with Capitol, they didn't have that logo, that really cool
It's great.
logo.
Like,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, but yeah, no, and that's I guess the cool thing is that usually you can pick up those best known records quite cheap, and I would say
Mm,
please do and listen to them
mm,
because I think you'll find a lot to like.
mm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I can't believe just going back to this single, they don't even advertise the fact it's got a bonus track on it or even that it's got another track on it. It's got this could be the
Yeah,
right one on both sides. Yeah.
that should have been a selling point. And also, for that matter, this could be the right one. Should have been a bigger hit. I really liked that song. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a single, it was a video, but it didn't do very well. It didn't even really get a lot of airplay here in Canada. I remember seeing the video way back, and that was definitely the first video I ever saw by them. They weren't really, like a lot of '70s bands that went into the '80s. Their videos are hit and miss, but I kind of get a kick out of them. Like, Enough
Oh
is
yeah.
Enough, where they're driving around in the 18 wheeler and Miles is singing into the CB. They're kind of funny, but great songs.
Yeah, I was watching just tonight actually I was watching because I thought I don't think I've ever seen this. F-U-C-K, if you C K. That
Yeah,
music
yeah, that
video
they
with the girl
they did
diving off
yeah,
the
that
diving board. Yeah.
there's four video. They actually did four videos from that Power Play record, which is the most like they did another one for Tell Me Why, and they did one for Doing It Right, and of course Enough is Enough. And but they didn't do a lot. And but you know what? They were actually got a lot of play on MTV in their early years. And number
Mm,
one, it's because MTV didn't have a lot of videos, but
mm,
April Wine were a big band at the time. They were the first Canadian act ever played on MTV. They were played on that first day, just live. Like they put out a home video at a time when home video was kind of new back in '81 called Live in London, which has been reissued on DVD. And it's a good concert. It's got some very dated sort of effects to some of the editing, but they MTV would play the versions of Just Between You and Me and Sign of the Gypsy Queen a lot.
Cool. All right. Well, look, this is the book that Tim's seventh book, and it's called On the Record, the April Wine Album Review. There we go. And yeah, it is on Amazon as usual, Tim. People can get it there.
Yeah, yeah, Amazon, all over the world. Just type in my name and all my books should come up. And yeah, it's been, the response has been good so far. I think a lot of people are like, finally. I get that a lot. Finally, someone's done a book on
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
band, which it's just an extension of my love for the music and why I started my YouTube channel. And
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy to, that I've been able to get this many books out, and I'm not stopping. I've got another book that's kind of underway. It probably won't be until the end of this year, but yeah, I mean, and I want to try and cover these types of bands and get at least something out there in the readers market, because I know there's a lot of us like we love our music, but we love knowing about these bands too. So this
Mm,
is a way that you can get it all in one place, and you don't have to go to
mm,
this website or that website. It's
mm,
the information is here, and it's helpful for if you're a longtime fan to like get you listening to these albums again, and if you're a curious fan, this tells you where you'll find the songs. I mean, if you know any of the songs, well, here's where they come from. This is the album they're on. This is what we think of the whole album, that sort of thing. Just like all the rest of my books, it's the idea is that we want you to explore these
mm.
catalogs.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, it's great. It's good fun. Just put an album on and just have a read through the album and read the comments as the album plays. That's kind of how I do it. And yeah, it's really good. And one thing too, I'll just say that if you are like me and you're down here or down under or I don't know, in a place where maybe you're having some trouble ordering it on Amazon, I actually had to go through Amazon.co.uk to get this, so it could just be
Daniel from Bicycle Legs had the same issue.
right.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
why that is. I don't know why that is. I wish there was something I could do about that, but
I think people could probably figure it out eventually, but
yeah.
yeah, so yeah, like I said, seventh book, there's probably going to be another one very soon. I think Tim, you're getting close to beating because I don't have I do enjoy books, but I don't have that big a collection of books. But you're getting close to beating Martin Popoff as my most popular author. So in my
Oh
collection,
wow. Well,
yeah,
thank you very much. And
yeah,
and
yeah,
and I
yeah.
also want to give a shout out to Martin for doing the foreword to this book too, and he
Yeah.
tells a really cool story in it.
Yeah, no, he's great. But yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. Of course, Tim's been on my channel, not just talking about his books, but talking about lots of different bands. And likewise, I've done the same. In fact, I will
Yep.
be on Tim's channel at some point. We are talking harder, faster as part of his deep dive.
Yep, yeah, that's the harder, faster deep dive. It's in the can, so it will be coming up. So I've been playing them, they'll be playing once a week, and
Yeah,
yeah, and Steve took part in that one. So yeah, that'll be, always a pleasure.
yeah. No, it's been great. Okay, well, if you like this type of content, make sure you check out Tim at Tim's Vinyl Confessions, but also make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe, and we will catch you later. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, Steve.